So we've got a very exciting theme, DeFi in Southeast Asia. I think we need to start with a little bit of intro. Keone, do you want to start?
Sure thing. My name's Keone Han, co-founder of Monad. Monad is a fully bytecode EVM compatible layer 1 with over 10,000 TPS of throughput, 1 second block times, single slot finality, and that comes from parallelizing the EVM as well as a bunch of other optimizations.
Okay, YK, what about you?
Hello, this is YK. I'm the CEO of Merkle Trade. Merkle Trade is the first ever gamified prep text. It's based in Aptos, but omnichain through layer 0. We applied popular gaming elements such as levels and items to the experience of prep trading. And we believe we found our first initial PMF. We have around 1K DAU and also 100 million daily volume. So we're trying to expand our vision. Thanks.
Thanks, YK. Thibault?
Hi guys, I lead strategy at Bifrost. Bifrost is a dedicated liquid staking L1, substrate-based and powered by Polkadot.
And finally, Soravis.
Hey, so I'm Soravis, co-founder of Band Protocol. We are a data oracle, serving data without incident since 2017. And we've been working across multiple chains, securing a lot of values over 200 millions right now. At the peak was probably closer to billions with Terra. But yeah, been working a lot with DeFi protocol, a lot of layer 1 as well.
Wonderful. A few words on me. So I'm the CEO founder of a digital climate group, DCG, but not the infamous one. What we do is basically refi, and we look at financing projects using blockchain, especially in Asia and Southeast Asia. Using green bond tokenization, carbon credit tokenization. So I'll start with a few words on the state of the market here in Asia, and maybe you guys can add up to that. So I think there's been quite a lot of talks about the scale of, in general, on-chain industry and crypto industry in Southeast Asia. But in general, the APAC region is proving to become like a huge hub for crypto on-chain in general. Just in Central, Southern Asia, and Oceania, the activities have grown more than 20% last year and represent more than 55% of overall DeFi activity globally. Obviously, I include hubs like Hong Kong, Singapore in this, but it's not only about transactional volume. It's also investments. There are countries like Bhutan that have invested 500 millions in mining Bitcoin. In Singapore, you have 75% of the institutional world, which is also moving into on-chain tests. You've got hubs in Bangkok, hubs in Hong Kong, hubs in Japan that are just flowering all over. And I think regulators are trying to catch up to that. Major banks like DBS, like Siam Commercial Bank here, also investing in this space. And I think there's a few elements that are driving that. Obviously, it's the fact that, first of all, the countries in the Southeast Asia region have always suffered from lack of banking infrastructure in general. In countries like Indonesia, you've got 60% of the population which isn't banked. So having access to wallets, having access to new means of payment is something that is quite useful. So financial inclusion is really a big driver, but obviously gaming as well, and in general revenue generation. I want to leave you guys a little bit of time to give me maybe a few examples, a few assessments of where you see your activity in the DeFi Southeast Asia is going to be moving. Do you want to start, Keone?
Yeah, I think it's very obvious.
Okay. So YK maybe?
Yeah, sure. I definitely agree with the potential that Southeast Asia has. I mean, I spent some time in Vietnam. More than 20% of the population has experienced owning and trading crypto. And if you look at Thailand, there's a very nice combination between the institutional participation and also the grassroots participation. So there are major banks, the largest banks, SCB and also K-Bank are both very passionate in crypto. But at the same time, there are many startups such as CryptoMine, GuildFi, and those kind of great growing projects based out of the people of Thailand. So I think Southeast Asia is definitely the place where mass adoption has a possibility to actually infiltrate because unlike others, the existing infrastructure is not as developed. So there's definitely a lot of potential for the infrastructure to leapfrog into Web3 enabled infrastructure which is not very easy in more developed countries. So I definitely find the Southeast Asia potential very attracting for our user base as well.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats. I think Vietnam is by far the largest adopter of technology, before Thailand and then Philippines, right? So these are the three core countries we see over here. Thibault, anything on your side or any use cases that you feel are going to be very useful in the Southeast Asia DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that maybe the majority of what's happening right now in Southeast Asia is potentially around, there's obviously transactions happening on centralized exchanges, there's P2P exchanges. We've seen in Vietnam a lot of like the pay to earn narrative, which was sort of a big catalyst to the onboarding there of the majority of users. But I am still not seeing sort of your average person, being onboarded seamlessly and interacting with interesting DeFi primitives. So, I mean, we're doing liquid staking, which I think is a base layer primitive, which I think is very important to bootstrapping, on-chain activity and use cases. And I think that's still very sort of at its first instances. However, I do think that, the catalyst in Southeast Asia being obviously, a growth in wealth. There's a younger population. There's more sort of a hyper, connectivity. So I think there's a good sort of grounds there to sort of activate that. Now it's just a question of where do we stand in sort of the infrastructure side of things. We're seeing a lot of like blockchains coming out, roll-ups and stuff. It's all about how does that all work in order to sort of like really onboard the next people. And obviously one last thing to say is obviously macro trends, around sort of currencies, emerging market currencies against the dollar. So we are obviously seeing a lot of penetration of, stablecoin activity, and sort of how easy it is that for that use within this market.
And Soravis, do you want to add anything on the Southeast Asia?
Yeah,
high level?
I think a lot of people underestimate the power of Southeast Asia. Actually, just simply because the market is quite fragmented, right? We have different culture, different languages, right? But actually, if you look deeply into each market, you would see a lot of activities. Sure, I think to Thibault's point, the regular person will not be interacting with DeFi, but I think that's true across the world, right? I think that's a hard ask right now for the industry. But if you look at the amount of activities and the capital that are in the market, actually Southeast Asia actually has quite a lot more than people think. Like if you look at Thailand, for example, Phuket actually is a hub for a lot of the crypto Twitter that you wouldn't imagine. Like a lot of the big accounts are actually in Phuket. Even in Vietnam as well, and I think what's interesting about Southeast Asia is that obviously a lot of the countries are also competing to get this next J curve, right? So that's why you see a lot of much more open in terms of regulation, in terms of involvement from the bank, from institution, as opposed to the US or more established market, right? And I think that's a good thing, right? With competition, then you already see right now Singapore and Hong Kong essentially competing to be the hub of crypto, right? And we already see the shift of talent and capital around. So I think is an interesting market where I think if you're a crypto project or if you're a participant in this industry is something that you should really explore, because you will see a lot more users and actually more capital than you think.
Can I stay with you and ask you, maybe when it comes to technology, especially if you look at your project, your own project, what elements of technology in your project do you feel are going to make a real difference looking forward here, especially?
Right. So I think
you're based in Bangkok, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. I think for us it's a bit unique because we are an Oracle project. So we actually a B2B, right? We basically serve data to DeFi projects. So I think the essence of that is essentially just securities then, right? I mean, if Oracle fail, then essentially a lot of these DeFi will fail, right? Even Chainlink has incident before, right? And recently you also see a lot of protocol that do not really care much about Oracle being exploited. So I think the essence of our project then I think is really important. And I think we're really proud that after 6-7 years already, I don't think we have any single incident that caused any liquidation mistakenly from the end users. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, in order for DeFi to actually win over a lot of decentralized party, you need that trust from users, right? You need that trust that you're not going to get liquidated like what we see with Renzo and a lot of the recent incident as well. So I think that's really important, and that's what we take to our heart.
Yeah. And Keone, when it comes to Monad in Southeast Asia, what are your targets? What is your technology edge to start up here?
Yeah, a couple of comments. One is that within Monad, we've seen really incredible community being built, especially, it's all regional, so, different, every country is different, but we've seen an incredible growth in the Indonesian community or the Indonads. Also very, very strong growth in Vietnam. And the Thai community, the Monad Thailand community is incredibly strong as well. We have a meetup planned on Saturday that I think has like 500 people planning to attend. So I think there's just incredible growth, and it also is aligned with the fact that from a throughput perspective and a cost perspective, Monad is pushing the limits of what is possible with the EVM by taking transaction fees from, let's say for a simple Uniswap swap, like $5 to $50, or on layer 2s, that might be like 10 cents to $1, taking that to a tenth of a cent, ultimately allowing many more users to use DeFi.
Wonderful. YK, what about you? Technology. How does your technology bring in value into the region right now?
Yeah, so for us, we have really simplified the onboarding process. So of course, let's say it's very difficult for all users actually to go to a certain ecosystem that the project is based in and buy their tokens, and in our case it's Aptos, and to be honest, not that many people have Aptos wallets yet. So what we've done is we've utilized layer 0 so that we call it one-click trading. But anyone with any kind of an EVM wallet can just deposit into our platform because the user's Aptos wallet is connected to the EVM wallet. So the user can just utilize both ecosystems based on a single seed phrase. So we are trying to kind of make onboarding as easy as possible for all kind of users. If we put that into perspective for Southeast Asia users, I believe there are some cases where the major futures platforms do not allow the KYC of certain user bases. So for us, we really don't have that kind of barrier. It's really permissionless for people to actually use our product. So I think that is useful for some countries that are barred from those accesses.
Thibault, anything to add from Bifrost?
Yeah, I think on our ends, I think the term, abstraction, cross-chain abstraction, account abstraction have been sort of really hot. And I think there's a lot of projects doing stuff there. We try to take a bit of that and sort of try to, I say onboard users in an easier way, because obviously liquid staking takes a bit of a certain amount of understanding as to like what you're doing versus native staking or nomination pools or whatever. So we've tried to sort of embed these interactions to sort of simplify the process. So we have tried to onboard or integrate directly into wallets. We've seen the likes of MetaMask doing that with Lido, Rocket Pool. We've done that in ecosystem wallets, which are a bit niche to Polkadot, where we currently stand. But I definitely think that, as we go cross-chain and we start sort of implementing our solutions elsewhere, we're going to have, a simplified UI where basically you can just simply bring in your token and liquid stake directly, and in the back end, all the processes between, calling of contracts on other chains is done seamlessly. So I think that's the direction we're taking. Because I think, where we stand today, let's just be very honest, we have optimized, the analogy is a very simplified one, but we've got optimized isolated countries, right? And the idea now is, how do we unify that, in order to sort of maximize, these solutions to the retail user? End of the day, it really is about adoption, right? So I think we're still very much at the first innings of where we can, where we're heading.
If we look at the centralized finance versus DeFi space, right? So Southeast Asia is also, there's massive investment in CeFi as well. But there's also been a very strong hurdle when it comes to regulatory side, right? Singapore has moved into one direction and then kind of stepped back on the CeFi side. So what do you feel? I don't want to put you on the spot when it comes to regulations, because I'm always very careful with that. But maybe you guys think that, give me some hints about where you feel, in general, jurisdictions like Vietnam, like Thailand, like, of course, Singapore, Indonesia are moving in terms of recognizing DeFi that gives an edge to DeFi versus CeFi. It's a bit of a complicated question. Maybe I can start with Soravis on that, because you know especially the local environment here pretty well, and I guess you serve both CeFi and DeFi with your system.
Sure. So I think it's a good thing that a lot of them, regulators actually, start to have a good framework, and actually, especially in Thailand, I guess I can speak to that, they are much more open than other countries, in terms of, hey, you can come in, register with us, get a proper license, and you can discuss things with them, right? So I think even compared to US, I think that's even a better framework. At least a question of token being a securities or not, I think that's really clearly defined for us, or at least they're not going after you and without any proper, if you're not doing anything shady, I think they are much more reasonable in that aspect. So that's why you see so many exchanges, just in Thailand, you see OTC, you see a lot of brokerage and and other CeFi happening here, right? And that's a good thing, because then it allows regular users and customers to be much more comfortable, right, with the industry. But I can't really speak to other country. But yeah, I think for me, that really allowed Thailand to be one of the hub as well, and that's why a lot of traders, a lot of the people that like to come in, also part of that, right? Yeah.
Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, actually have a little different view. So for me, I believe, especially in the context of Southeast Asia and broader Asia, CeFi can actually be a new funnel for DeFi. Because if you look at countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and also Korea, and even Japan, because crypto has grown so significantly, now the bigger players, bigger institutions are coming in to accept the fact that crypto will be an important part of our lives. So if you look at Korea, despite the fact that one of the largest meltdowns happened, Terra, the government still recognizes that crypto is a very important industry, and the largest bank has a custodial service for the institutions, and many people expect that the regulations will become more friendly. In Thailand, the two largest commercial banks are going deeply into crypto, right? And I think as that kind of matures, as those efforts mature, like in Korea, what the largest the telecom company now also has a crypto wallet inside their app. So if these efforts really mature, I think CeFi can be a meaningful onboarding flow for DeFi, because when people get to know that there is this thing called crypto through these CeFi apps, they'll want to know more. And if they want to get more juicy returns or more juicy more services, they will have to go into DeFi. So for me, I think they're not too competitive, but rather complementary.
I have a comment, and acknowledging that this is a little bit speculative, but if you look in CeFi, the biggest markets in the world are the U.S. stock market, and then European equities. And it really is true that having good markets ultimately results in more capital, which ultimately then helps businesses grow. And it's the case that in a lot of individual countries in Southeast Asia, the CeFi, the centralized stock markets are much, much smaller.
Yes.
And so I think one thing that I'm actually very optimistic about is the idea of utilizing DeFi rails, which are already more efficient than centralized financial rails in a lot of contexts, to actually allow companies that exist, in Indonesia or Thailand or Vietnam, or many other countries, to actually get access to capital, and allow their businesses to grow. So I just, it is very speculative, but I think this would be a great trend that I would like to see. And I think there's a lot of opportunity coming from bringing more capital to these companies that need capital to grow, and actually solves a huge problem, while also utilizing all the efficient rails of DeFi.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, actually. I think one of the hurdles is also currency. So the ability to, handle capital control in the different countries, right? So how do you see DeFi being able to handle that? Maybe we talked a bit about it too. I don't know if you have any view on that. I know it's a very big topic, but when you want to invest in when you're in Indonesian, having your wallets, how are you moving your IDR into on-chain products? This can be also quite problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit of a view because obviously my background used to be in FX, but I obviously still think that, we spoke about it behind stage, right? We said that the biggest market for CeFi is the FX market, right? It's the one where there's there's the most volume in terms of daily volume, and then there's the most fees and the revenue for banks are there. So I don't think there's going to be any changes there. We did say that potentially blockchain rails or whatever the technology behind there can eventually help out on settlement, counterparty risk and that sort of stuff. Just to add one last thing about what Keone was saying is I thought it was quite interesting. The BIS is actually working with a lot of different authorities around the world, MAS as well out of Singapore, in using DeFi primitives like AMMs and stuff in terms of interacting on significant amounts. So I think it's quite interesting to see that overlap where DeFi primitives or, I'd say really important, parts of technology there are being utilized by these sort of, big players. Now, in regards to like the retail, I definitely think that, this is something which fintech has somewhat, touched upon, the likes of Revolut. When I come to Bangkok, I just plug in my Revolut and I can just switch to different currencies. It's already a much better offering than using my traditional bank account. So I definitely think that there's probably a synergy there between, the fintech and DeFi and how we can sort of shape those two things together. I do think in the past, though, there were maybe... You can jump in here. I do think there are some perps or at least some dexes back in the day that used to tokenize or do FX on chain as well, but I don't know whether or not that was a success.
Well, we do get great volume for Forex, but I think it's possible because it's a perp, like a futures. Because as a Korean, I do know that currency can be a very sensitive matter for a lot of governments. Like Korea specifically had to go through the 97 financial crisis because they were out of USD reserves and the KRW depegged from USD. So, since fiat is 100% government backed, I kind of understand that friction. But at the same time, in regions where the currency has utterly failed, I think stablecoins are definitely a very powerful way where the people can actually get out of their situation, such as in Argentina. So I think it's a great alternative as an individual, but from the perspective of the government, I think this is a very tricky one. And I think if CBDCs are issued and if they are utilized for Forex, I think the government can feel more assured. But at the moment, if you bring like USDC to Korea, you'll be very heavily regulated. So I think it's something that we should see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I worked on the M-Bridge project, which involved the Bank of Thailand and the HKMA. So I think a lot of central banks are trying to get into the CBDC space. So the question is really for DeFi, what is going to be the medium of settlement? Is that going to be CBDC? Is that going to be stable coins, or is that going to be crypto? Right. So I think this is where we are. I'm conscious of time, so I want to talk about the security innovation. Maybe give you some time, Keone, on your side. What can convince people to move away from centralized exchange and going into decentralized markets or decentralized use cases, especially how can we ensure security, very strong security in all our layer ones and all the different applications that we're looking at? And what do you guys in Monad plan to implement for that?
Yeah, I think the benefits of using DeFi over centralized alternatives are transparency. So we can actually see exactly the positions that everyone has and their collateral, their debt obligations. There's more transparency, number one. Number two, there's better composability. So potentially we can use the capital that's in DeFi more efficiently, coming from the fact that applications can compose on top of other applications and build up more complex functionality from simpler things. And then lastly, censorship resistance. So anyone can utilize DeFi applications as long as they have an internet connection and they've installed a wallet. Now, that's all just general commentary about blockchains. In particular, with Monad, the entire intent of Monad is to re-optimize the EVM from scratch so that gas is much, much cheaper. Ultimately, this has a number of effects. One is just that literally for any user, they're paying much less in gas fees. But the other thing is that for developers that are building applications, they're not hyper-focused on gas optimization, which often leads to cutting corners in some ways, like omitting defensive assertions that could have protected the protocol. So I think, just in general, we need to see DeFi become more secure. Every time there's a hack, it's another black mark against the space, and we have to push forward and get increased security of protocols, and that comes from better security practices as well as removing the trade-off right now that developers experience between gas efficiency and security. Give them the best of both worlds.
So, any comments, Soravis, on this, on the security
Sure.
needed?
I think actually recent event like past 2 years actually showed a lot, right, in terms of how DeFi actually is superior than CeFi. Even when you say you trust FTX and all the centralized exchanges, there's still a lot of shady things going on behind the scene, right? And ironically, the reason why we sort of caught that was DeFi, right? It was on-chain activities and on-chain balances that led us to sort of catch that. So I think that already demonstrated to a lot of people, at least the existing people, communities that were in crypto back then. So I think that's why a lot of if you look at the older, I guess, generation of people in crypto, which are not that old, they are actually much more comfortable in DeFi compared to leaving the exchange, money on the exchange, right? Now, when you said how can we actually increase securities or make people more comfortable, I think a couple of things. Number one, obviously, time is really important, right? As is the Lindy effect, right? As times go on, then you feel much more comfortable. That's why Bitcoin, that's why Ethereum, or a lot of the older DeFi protocol like Aave actually has much more, I guess, sticky traction compared to other newer protocol. While they're more flashy, the capital is also much more flashy as well because they accept that risk, right? So I think as times go on, obviously people will be much more comfortable with a lot of these newer protocol, and that will lead to greater usages, right, over time. And another factor is obviously communities. So I think we are seeing a lot more effort, like, SAC XBT are forming, almost like a security council among the other researcher to catch the bad guy. So I think that's also is a really good initiative. I think we will see much more of that over the coming months and year as well. So I think that's going to be quite interesting. And lastly, I think, ironically, again, I think regulator gonna play an important role. I mean, you already see a lot of the cases that are going on trial right now. Obviously, we need to walk a fine line between code is law versus actual law, right? But we see a lot more punishment from these real cases. That's gonna deter a lot more bad actor going forward. Obviously, that's not gonna be 100%. Just like real world, right? But I think that's going to contribute more to the safetiness of this space as well. Yeah.
Okay, we've got a little bit more than 5 minutes left, so I just want to give each of one of you a time to maybe iron out an initiative or project or a change that you believe is going to have an impact in the region, or something that you're willing to bet for the future that is really going to make adoption even bigger, whether it's in gaming, whether it's anything. What is your biggest bet when it comes to projects in the region, and where would you put your money right now? So maybe we start with Keone.
Yeah, I mean, rather than talking about a specific project or sort of pumping up one particular thing, I guess what I wanted to say is that at the end of the day, with DeFi, with crypto, we're building a new system from scratch, and that creates an incredible amount of opportunity. And it's very exciting, being here in Southeast Asia, where, there's so many people who, first of all, like, Southeast Asia is very much a powerhouse. Like, there's so many people here who are excited about a brighter future and are embracing these technologies at an early stage and helping them to grow. And I think it's just a huge opportunity for for anyone, but especially for people that can jump onto something early and get involved, contribute. I think one thing we haven't really talked about during this panel at all is community, but community is transformative. Community is what makes crypto so special. Like on crypto Twitter, the fact that like so many people care about all these early stage startups is incredible. Like in no other industry do you have, you know, an early stage company putting out an announcement and having like hundreds or thousands of people like cheering them on and encouraging them. And so I think that just like getting involved in community for early stage projects is an incredible way to help push the projects forward and help change the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't say it's specifically like a project, but I would say it's like a group because for products like us, wallet experience is really important. And I think the current wallets, I mean, shout out to MetaMask and all the others, but they're definitely not ready for the multi-chain experience because not many people just stick to one like specific ecosystem. Rather, they go around to see like what's exciting, what's new. But the current wallet system really doesn't like support that. And of course, last year account abstraction was a huge topic, but I don't think anyone has found like the golden recipe. Like some have gone on the wallet as a service route, some has gone to like making like a wallet super app, putting in all the necessary like features that they think is valuable. But when that kind of optimized user experience comes out, I think it will be like game changing for all other products because all the products will have to configure their user experience to match that kind of golden kind of configuration. So I don't know what that will be, and of course it's very difficult to make the users transition from their existing wallet services. But if that outstanding user experience become industry standard, I think the onboarding flow of users will drastically change. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2024.
Okay. So community, multi-chain wallet. What about you, Thibault?
Yeah, I just want to sort of piggyback off what YK is saying. I think cross-chain abstraction is obviously quite important. As I said earlier, we have a proliferation of roll-ups of different L1s and stuff, but it's all about end users, right? So at the end of the day, like I'd also say, you know, I completely agree with Keone in terms of like the tribalism, the community is super important, but essentially it's very much siloed still. So I think the end goal is, as YK was saying, you know, cross-chain abstraction, but also liquidity as well. You know, the topic is DeFi, and at the end of the day is when you have these siloed, you know, ecosystems and projects, well, liquidity is fragmented as well there. So I think on more of a DeFi side, I think it's really important that we keep tackling this sort of structural problem at abstraction of the different, you know, stack in the different layers of the stack, and then liquidity as well. So we're seeing, you know, projects now working with the liquidity hooks, you know, on DeFi primitives. I think is quite important. So yeah, I think remaining on DeFi and the topic today is really around the user experience when interacting with these protocols.
Soravis?
So I think a lot of people talk a lot about really technical, also really important things. But I think just to wrap everything up, I guess I'm quite bullish on memes. And I think that's not something we talk about a lot. And I think part of growing up and part of being through multiple cycle is realizing that everything in life is a meme, right? If you think about it, art is a meme, right? Money is a meme, right? Bitcoin is a meme. Everything is a meme, right? And I think memes revolve around communities, right? Memes revolve around culture. And I think that's actually part of what defines us as human, actually. So I think part of realizing that and accepting that, I think I'm really bullish on younger generation coming into this space, and that's why they understand this, right? They grow up with the meme culture, whether that's on Reddit, whether that's on Twitter, you know, they understand it. And I think, so I'm just incredibly bullish on that. And I think the projects or any protocol that embrace that and understand that, you know, will actually grow quite a lot over the next coming years as well, not just something transitory.
So I'll add something on, you know, preaching a little bit for my core, because I believe, you know, working in refi on my side, I think Southeast Asia is an absolutely critical part of the way we are going to be fighting against, you know, catastrophic changes in our climate and in the environmental side. The amount of projects that exist in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam about food security, about, you know, generating more circular economy, fighting any kind of cataclysmic events that are going to be facing this population is critical. And I think the power of communities, the power of creating decentralized voting, decentralized investing in all of these projects to really bring in local communities to deal with the global problems is critical. So, everything you've said is absolutely core. And I think, we are in the right place. There will be trillions and trillions of dollars going in this kind of industry. And I think, anything on chain will make a huge difference, bringing a lot more players, a lot more local community participations from all over the place. All right. Well, time is up. Thank you, guys. Round of applause for the panelists, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.